Hey there, friends and fictional folk! Tell me, what do Percy Jackson, Star Trek, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, Avatar The Last Airbender, and the Stormlight Archive all have in common? These are vastly different settings with vastly different tones, age ranges, and magic systems. But there is one thing that they all share, which have contributed to the size and proliferation of their individual fandoms. They all subscribe to my channel and donate to my Patreon. I'm kidding, I'm kidding. The real thing that they all share is that they all inspire the creation of original characters, also known in fandom spaces as OCs. For anyone who doesn't know, OCs are characters created by fans which are designed to inhabit certain worlds and settings in fiction which the fan can use for any number of things. They might make or commission fan art of the OC just to look at. They might write fan fiction featuring their OCs. They might even make roleplay blogs or Discord chats to play out scenarios with other people's OCs. This phenomenon is nothing new, of course. It is so old that it has led to the creation of several tropes which used to just exist in fandom spaces, but which have slowly started to bleed over into popular culture. The most prevalent of these is the idea of the self-insert OC and its evolution, the Mary Sue. See, Mary Sue started as a self-insert OC of a fanfiction writer in the Star Trek fandom, which as fandoms go is probably one of the oldest. She was a perfect character with no flaws that the author shoehorned into the crew of the Enterprise with little to no explanation. Also that the author could have a wish fulfillment power fantasy of being on the show with her favorite characters. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. It was made by a fan for their own enjoyment. Was it a bit cringe? Sure, but who on the internet hasn't been a little bit cringe about one of their fandoms at some point? If you want to see a fantastic breakdown of the Mary Sue trope and how it has become part of the cultural zeitgeist, I recommend you check out Overly Sarcastic Productions' Trope Talk about it. It is very good. But that is not the focus of this video. No, what I want to focus on is what elements of a setting or a story inspire a greater number of OCs in some works than others. Because while properties like My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, Star Wars, and Star Trek produce oodles and oodles of OCs, works that are equally as good, like the Grishaverse, Iron Widow, Dishonored, and The Witcher, just don't. Even works by the same author inspire different amounts of OCs. Take Brandon Sanderson, for example. The Stormlight Archive and Elantris are both part of an interconnected fantasy universe known as the Cosmere. But I guarantee that if you go on Tumblr or Google and you type in Cosmere OC, you're going to get a lot more results for the Stormlight Archive than you are for Elantris. So why is that? How do some works create a space that readers and viewers want to explore with their own creations, while others don't? Let's dig into it. The world of Avatar The Last Airbender is divided into 4 distinct nations, where people can be born with control over one of the 4 classical elements of water, earth, fire, or air. In the world of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the gods of ancient Greek mythology are real, and occasionally have kids with mortals. These kids, these demigods, have skills, powers, and sometimes personalities which reflect their godly parentage, and are trained in a summer camp where they are divided into different cabins, each one representing their godly parent. In the Stormlight Archive, the Knights Radiant bond with spiritual beings known as Spren, to acquire powers which are based on the kind of Spren they bond. These bonds are created through swearing oaths to certain ideals, such as protection, justice, freedom, or truth. Now from the way I phrased my descriptions of these settings, you may have started to see a pattern emerge. Each one contains an in-universe way of both distinguishing oneself from others, while also being part of a group of like-minded people. Percy Jackson has its godly parentages, Avatar has its benders, and the Stormlight Archive has the Knights Radiant. All of these have special groups that you, the viewer, can be a part of, and are extremely appealing. See, humans like categories. We like putting things in little boxes with labels on them, even though if you get down to the nittiest grittiest parts of each of these categories, they all kind of blend into each other. We do this with everything from race, gender, sexuality, religion, and especially the sciences. There's just a part of us that likes putting things into easily distinguishable groups, especially ourselves. And certain fictional worlds scratch that itch very well, because they can draw those hard lines that the everyday world can't. There's a distinct and easily recognizable difference between a firebender and a waterbender. No one is going to mistake a child of Ares with a child of Athena. Windrunners and Skybreakers can fly, but they certainly can't soulcast like Lightweavers and Elsecallers. A cynic may call this idea factionalism, but I don't see it as such. My Little Pony Friendship is Magic has Pegasi, Unicorns, and Earth Ponies. 3 distinct types of pony, but all part of Equestria. The Hunger Games series has the 12 districts divided by what they produce, but all are lorded over by the tyrannical leaders in the capital. Star Trek and Star Wars both have dozens of alien species, but both also have a variety of factions that these aliens might belong to, like the Federation and the Klingon Empire, or the Jedi and the Sith. They are separate and unique groups, but all united by something. It's like the pride flag. Everyone has a stripe or a section, but they are all unique and even have their own flags. Unity emerging from diversity. And it's not hard to see how this leads to the creation of OCs in fandom spaces. I get to fight evil my way with my friends, while you get to fight evil your way with your friends. We're all on the same team, but fighting in our own special ways. We get to be special and unique while also being accepted into a group, thus tackling the itch for individuality and acceptance and categorizing all at once. But of course that requires a solid world building base from which to extrapolate, because while these settings do have their factions and hard divisions, they also explore what it means to be part of these factions. The Avatar fandom wouldn't have nearly as many OCs if it didn't show how the southern waterbenders are different from the northern waterbenders, and how both of them are wildly different from the Foggy Bottom swamp waterbenders. These settings present the divisions and then show you all the different ways that you can be one of these people. They explore the depth of their divisions. Of course, this isn't to say that other works that don't inspire as many OCs in their fandom are necessarily bad at world building or exploring their factions. They just don't always have that special mixture of elements that make people want to pick a side. Elantris, which is set in the same universe but not the same planet as the Stormlight Archive, explores the conflict of a single nation with a single group of magically inclined individuals, the Elantrians. And while there are different factions of Elantrians in the book, they serve more as obstacles to unification rather than sides you're encouraged to pick. Especially as many of them are nearly feral thanks to the effects of the Sheod, or however you pronounce it. There aren't really different types of Elantrians. And while there are other magic systems on the world of Cell, we don't see them explored nearly as much as those of the Elantrians, and they aren't divvied up in the same way as those in the Stormlight Archive. Dishonored and The Witcher also have their factions, but they are mainly focused on the exploration of a single protagonist story rather than a team of unique individuals from different paths. And yes, The Witcher has its different Witcher schools, but it isn't like Geralt has a friend or two from each of them that share the spotlight like an Avatar with its benders and non-benders. In a similar vein, Iron Widow feels like it should be a shoo-in for inspiring OCs. After all, who wouldn't want to pilot a Chinese mythology-inspired mech which can manifest certain powers depending on its pilot's dominant chi? There's just the slight problem that 99% of the times the female co-pilot ends up getting killed by the strain of piloting the mech. Meanwhile, the male co-pilots always live, leading to a terribly misogynistic society which the main character Wu Zetian is fighting against. This, along with the fact that the story is heavily focused on its main character, like The Witcher and Dishonored are, rather than a wider cast, means that most of the fandom's art for this book focuses on Wu Zetian and the Iron Triangle, rather than OCs. This may change in the sequel Heavenly Tyrant, but I haven't had a chance to read this yet time of recording, so I don't know. Again, this isn't to say that these franchises are in any way lesser because they inspire fewer OCs. Dishonored is my favorite video game franchise right along with the Horizon series, and neither of them really inspire much in the way of OCs in their fandoms. But it's an interesting facet of storytelling that I feel is often overlooked. I wouldn't say it's something to try building around when you're developing your own world, stories, and magic systems, but if you want to inspire the creation of OCs in your eventual fans, then it's something you may want to keep in the back of your mind. And as a final note, I'm obviously going to plug my own book, Strike the Match, but I'm kind of 50-50 on whether or not it will inspire many OCs. On the one hand, an interconnected fairy tale world with twists on the old stories like Ruby can inspire tons of creative original characters. But in a similar vein, you don't really see as many OCs for something like The School for Good and Evil. So I'm curious to see how it shakes out, especially as I write more books in this series. My next book, however, oh, that is rife with OC potential. But if you want to be kept informed on that project, then be certain to do all those YouTube things like liking, commenting, subscribing, and maybe while you're down there in the comments section, tell me about your favorite OC that you've created. And be sure to sign up for my Patreon so that you can see videos like these early. As well, you'll gain access to sneak previews of my upcoming projects, like the cover art for my next book. Every little bit counts, so I appreciate anything that you can spare. Until next time!